Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. The case that I'm going to look into today is the kidnap and murder of a little 5-year-old girl called April Jones. Just pre-warning, if you are obviously very sensitive to child murder cases, this is going to be one of them, unfortunately, and if that is not your kind of thing, then obviously I'm telling you now so that you can find another video and watch something else. If you guys have any case suggestions that you'd like to let me know about, please do, and I will look into them for you. But let's get into this video. I just like to let you know, I mean no disrespect to anyone I talk about. I've just got this information from the internet and compiled it into a video for educational purposes. April Jones was born on the 4th of April in 2007. I do wonder whether that is why they picked her beautiful name, because it was the month that she was born in. She was born to parents Coral and Paul, and she also had a brother and a sister that were older than her, a brother called Harley and a sister called Jasmine. And Jasmine was 16 years old at the time of this happening, and April was 5. They were from Wales, and they all lived in a place called Machulif. I am really sorry if I've said that wrong, and I mean I probably have, but I don't know how to say it, so yeah. Sorry about that. It's actually a place in North Wales. Now, April suffered from cerebral palsy, which she was diagnosed with from, just being a baby. And because of that, she would really struggle to walk sometimes, and therefore her movement was limited and things like that. And what her parents did, which was a really good idea actually, they taught her how to ride a bike at just the age of 3. It was an idea they had to help her mobilise, and it worked. She absolutely loved being on a bike. She was really good at it, and it allowed her to be able to get out there, play with her friends, things like that, which maybe she wouldn't have been able to do as well because of her cerebral palsy. But on her bike, she was just loved it, and she could just get out there. She also really loved being involved with her family, so whatever they were doing or interested in doing, she would love to get stuck in. She would love to join in. She was just so family orientated. She was such a lovely little girl, and she just loved life. On the 1st of October in 2012, the day started like any other. She went to school, and then once she finished at school, she had this swimming class, which probably also helped her with her mobility. So her mother took her to this swimming class, and she met her sister there. So I don't know if her sister did the swimming class too. She was a lot older, like I said, she was 16, or whether she just wanted to meet her there. Either way, they met there, they finished April did a swimming class, and then they went home after. Coral rang home to ask Paul if he would make them something quick to eat because they were on the way home, which he did. He made them spaghetti on toast, and then they got home, they ate that, and then April wanted to go and play out with her friends. There was kind of this grass area, sort of very close to the home, and they would go and play out. The village they lived in, town, whatever it was like a very safe one. It was it was thought to be very safe. It was quite small, sort of everyone knew everyone. People really wouldn't be that concerned about having their children go and play out like by themselves without adult supervision. So that is what everyone did. It was just a normal thing for that area. So April had gotten a good report card that day. She had done really well in school, and she had got these really good results for something or other. And because of that, her parents decided that they were going to let her play out for longer as like a reward for doing so well in school. So she gets on a bike, she goes to the grass, and she plays there like she would any other day. Just before around 7:30, Coral tells Harley to go and get April in. It's time to come in now, go and get your sister and bring her home. So Harley came back screaming, shouting that somebody had taken April, which I just can't even imagine how devastating hearing something like that was, how devastated her brother was to go and get her, to bring her in, to bring her in from playing out like she normally would do. She did it on a regular basis, and suddenly she's not there. And it's just so awful. She was only 5 years old at the time, and obviously they reported her missing to the police, saying that she'd been abducted. So she's on the phone to the police, which is this following phone call, and in the middle of it, she quickly tells the police that she can't really speak to them because she's trying to look for April and trying to find out more information. So she hands it over to a neighbour, and the neighbour then continues to speak to the police.
It's emergency. I've been kidnapped. Just stay still for me for a moment.
As you just heard, she explained that April was only 5. She told her the name, obviously, of April, and that one of her friends had seen her getting inside of this grey car in which they had seen a man behind the wheel. Police came down immediately. This little girl was missing and they needed to get there as quickly as they could. So they did. They got there in around 7 minutes, I think, which is very rapid response. And obviously they tried to find out everything that they could. All the information that anybody knew they needed to know. Neighbours were already out looking for April because they'd heard the news that she was missing. And so they wanted to do everything that they could to help. So they're out there, they're scouring the area. They're just doing anything and everything just to try and find her. Coral rang her other daughter and she was at a youth club. So she went absolutely bombing it home. She charged home and she also helped in the search for her little sister. As she got home, she saw the police everywhere. It must have been a really frightening scene. To hear that your sister's missing and then to go home and see all that, it's just really scary too. The police did try to do door-to-door questioning with all the neighbours and things like that to see if they'd seen anything. The problem with that was that pretty much all the neighbours were out there looking for April. So they're knocking on doors and no one's answering because they're already out there searching for her. I don't believe they really saw too much anyway. Most of the information actually came from April's friends. So the community really got together on this one. They all came out in force as the news started spreading. The police were searching for April. Everyone, and I mean everyone that possibly could, was out there searching. They were looking everywhere. They searched all the way through the night. So did the police. The investigation was just so close-knit and the community truly did come together in the search of this little girl, which is amazing. It's such an amazing thing to do because they just feel like the compassion and heartbroken that this little girl is missing. And if they have children themselves, they think, well, it could have been mine. And so they want to help. They want to do everything they can. And that is what they did. The police did manage to find out, as I said, most of the information came from April's friend. She was 7 years old. She was playing with April and she had seen it all. So she spoke to the police. She told them that this car was bigger in the back than it was in the front, that it had a window in the back and that it also had these big lights at the front. She then said that April had gotten into the car on the wrong side, which obviously led police and people to believe that this was a left-hand drive rather than the right-hand drive you would normally see in Wales. Because it was such a small community and again there wasn't really that many people that live there, they hoped that with this description of the car, with it being like this left-hand drive, that maybe they would find something, maybe they would find it and they would figure out, you know, who had done this and where April was very quickly. Obviously the longer it goes on, the more likely that children do not come back alive, unfortunately. So they wanted to find her quickly. 14 hours pass and it is freezing cold, it is wet, and they've not heard anything of April. They've not seen her. They've just not found any more information as to where she could be. And obviously people were frightened, people were worried, and so were the police. They were so worried about her because, you know, finding her safely, as I said, is getting less and less likely. They put up roadblocks, they had all the community out looking. They also did aerial searches. Again, they pretty much did everything they could to find her. Then the media got hold of, obviously, the news. They began sharing April's case, which brought in more and more people. The more people that heard about it, the more they actually came in from, I believe they came in from outside of their community just to help with the search. It was really amazing how they all pulled together, how their community and just everyone around them really pulled together. And it's just so heartwarming that they really did everything that they could to find April, even people that didn't know her, which is just such a lovely thing to hear when everyone comes together for such a horrible thing to try and obviously, you know, hope for a good outcome. It wasn't long before the police got a match on the vehicle. I believe it was within the day after she'd gone missing or the day after that. Again, it was very, very short time period. They got a match on the car and it belonged to Mark Bridger, who was a 46-year-old man at the time. He drove a left-hand drive Land Rover Discovery, which obviously matched the description of the car they were looking for. I believe that there weren't many people that drove a left-hand drive in the town, so that is how quickly they could get onto him as well, because there weren't many of them in the town at all. Mark, by all accounts, had 6 children of his own. His kids went to the same school as April. He had lived in the community for some time now, and I don't know, nobody really thought much of him. Nobody ever thought that he would have been capable of doing something like this. And yes, he did have a criminal record, but I don't exactly know what was on his criminal record. It was just things that didn't need to be monitored, you know, after kind of thing. So I don't know what they were or how serious they were, but surely they weren't that serious because he didn't need to be watched after it, I guess, and kept an eye on. The police also found out that Mark was in the area with his discovery at the time, around the time that April went missing. So he was looking like a good candidate for her abduction. They decided to do a search on Mark's home. When they got there, the fire was lit. It was burning very, very strongly, and there was nobody home. Mark wasn't there, so he had gone out and left this fire burning. You may ask why? I mean, you're probably going to find out in a second. So they searched his home, and they found that several areas throughout his home had spots or pools of blood on them. They also found quite a large amount of blood near his fireplace on his living room floor. And when the police entered as well, they found the fire, but they also found this sort of got swept over with this really strong smell of cleaning products, which was bleach. So they carried on searching his home. It wasn't looking very good for April at this point because they're finding blood and they're finding, you know, just horrible stuff. That's not looking good for her if he has done this to her. They search the fire and they find bone fragments in that, which again, equally disturbing and really, really looking slim chances for April at this point. These bone fragments were tested, but they weren't matched to April. They were just found to be from a young individual. So I don't think that they could fully match the DNA or anything to her on those, but they did know that it was from a young person. They did forensic testing on them, and before that even came back, they arrested Mark on the 2nd of April, that very same day. They brought him in and they sat him down for questioning, and he admitted to taking April in a sense. Like, the story he gave, I mean, personally, in my opinion, I really don't believe it. I don't think that that is what happened at all, but the version of events that he did give was that he accidentally hit April with his car, he knocked her over, he jumps out, he tries performing CPR, he panics, and he just, I don't know, puts her in the car. I don't know if he put her in the car to do CPR. I don't know what his story was on that, but she's now in the car and then he just drives off because he's panicking and he doesn't know what else to do. I mean, take her to a hospital, you know? That would have been a really good idea. Call an ambulance, something, anything, but no, he just drives off with her. They obviously told her parents everything, you know, they'd found these bones, they'd not matched it to April yet, but he's admitting that he ran her over accidentally and then, you know, drove off with her. The thing that didn't really corroborate that, they forensically searched his car and there wasn't any blood in there. So how can you run someone over fatally and them not bleed like anything? There would have been blood in that car, I'm pretty certain, but there wasn't any. Also, her friend, 7-year-old little friend, said April got in the car. She saw that. She was, you know, integral in the case. She described the car. She said she got in the wrong side. She was competent enough to know whether April had been run over. Come on. Clearly, I don't know, unless he's trying to claim that after he got her in the car, she then got out and he ran her out. I don't know. But that little friend would have known if he had run her over. And they said that she just got in on the wrong side. So basically, I believe he's trying to make up stories, and so did his parents. So did April's parents, sorry. They also believed that it wasn't the truth. That, you know, he hadn't knocked her over. He had just abducted her and most likely murdered her. Because, I don't know, he's sick, I guess. Again, all the blood in his home, you know, and the substantial amount of blood outside of his fire makes people believe that he abducted that little girl. He took her back to his home. I don't even know want to know what he did to her after that, but he killed her right there, probably in front of his fireplace, and then maybe threw, you know, I don't know, pieces of her on the fire, because where did the bones come from? So the police are trying to really, you know, gather a case against him. They've got all the blood in his house. They've got the witness testimony that April got into his car willingly, and they also did an examination of his phone and his computer, his electronics, all stuff like that. Now, what they did actually find was that the day before April had gone missing, Mark had actually split up with his girlfriend. I'm guessing he was really devastated by that. He was really upset, and so he went online and decided that he was gonna download indecent pictures of children. That's not really an appropriate response to being broken up with, but that's what he did. They found other child abuse material along with pictures of April and her sister. It's believed that he took it off social media. So he's gone on, he's downloaded the photos and he's saved them to his computer, which is creepy. Makes you believe that he probably pre-targeted her, which is just awful. He probably knew that April played out there often because he lived in the area. Maybe he's driven past and he's seen her there quite a lot. He's downloading these pictures of her, and then suddenly one day she just goes missing and he has ran her over. Police, as they looked more into it, they also found that he had tried to befriend Jasmine on Facebook. So April's sister, who was 16, he had sent her a friend request. Now, she knew Mark in passing, kind of to say hello. She knew of him, she knew his name, but that's about it. Like, she didn't know anything else. She didn't know him. She wouldn't comfortably go and have a super long chat with him or a personal chat. So she declined his offer, obviously as a friend on social media. Whether he would have tried to get her sister as well, I don't know, because he seemed like he was kind of fixated on her as well as April from everything that was, being found. On the 6th of October, Mark was charged with child abduction, attempting to pervert the cause of justice, and the murder of April Jones. On the 29th of April, his trial began. And all this time, they're still trying to find April. They know that, she's no longer alive, but they're trying to find a body. They're trying to find anything, It's awful what happened to her, and it's so tragic, but families at least can get some sort of peace by getting her body back and laying her to rest. So that is what they were trying to do. They were trying to search and find her body, and unfortunately they never did. They searched everywhere. Mark claimed that he couldn't remember where he'd put it, where he disposed of her body, because he was too drunk. So he just didn't say anything about that, and they never found her, which is tragic because, again, all they wanted to do was lay their little girl to rest, and they couldn't because of this vicious, evil man. He didn't even give them that decency either. The actual searches for a body were called off in April because, again, they just couldn't find anything. And they can't just look forever, unfortunately. His defence during the trial stuck to his original story. He had knocked her over, and then he'd driven off in a panic. He dumped a body somewhere because he was too drunk, and he couldn't remember where she'd gone, but that didn't really explain the bones on his fire. Like, seriously, Mark? Where have the bones come from? Why are the bones on your fire anyway? The forensics expert stated, again, like I just said, about the bones, that they were from a younger individual. All of the blood found in his house didn't really corroborate that story at all. And they did match the blood to being April, so that blood was hers, even though they couldn't fully match the bones. It was really thought that obviously April was injured fatally there somehow. Well, obviously Mark had done something to her. We don't know the full details of it, but whatever he did in his home. And for that amount of blood that they found, she wouldn't have been able to survive. On the 30th of May 2013, Mark Bridger was found guilty of all counts. The abduction, perverting the cause of justice, and the murder of 5-year-old little April Jones. He was sentenced to life imprisonment with the recommendation that he should never be released. And I totally agree with that. On the 26th of September, the service for April's funeral was held. Obviously, they didn't have a body, so they would have just probably buried maybe some of her belongings or something like that. I'm not entirely sure on that one. But unfortunately, they couldn't actually lay her remains to rest. And ever since, April's parents have been campaigning for the search engines to modify their systems to block these horrible images that people are just readily available to download, which is just disgusting. And I believe that in 2013, Google and Bing did just that, which is amazing. Her parents, in the wake of losing one of the most precious things to them on this earth, obviously they had their other 2 children too, but they lost a massive chunk of their heart that day, and they campaigned and they worked to try and stop this from happening again, to prevent people from being able to just readily download these horrible pictures that shouldn't even be on the internet in the first place. And that is just true strength, and that's just amazing. On the 4th of August in 2014, the Welsh Government actually purchased Mark's home and they bulldozed it, which is probably the best thing that could have happened. You know, that was a blight on the community. Nobody wanted that house there. The government didn't want that house there. And so they just got rid of it, which, good riddance. It's obviously believed that April was murdered in there, and just getting rid of that house and those, obviously not the memories, but just that house there is just a reminder of it all the time. Not that you'll ever forget, because you won't, but do you know what I mean? Seeing it all the time, it's just not good. So they did demolish it, which again was a really good thing. This case really breaks my heart. Mark had 6 children of his own, and he was seemingly a family man, and yet because of a breakup, I don't know, he just kidnapped April and killed her. And that is just disgusting and awful. She was 5 years old. She was such an innocent, beautiful little girl who absolutely adored her family. She loved her life. She loved playing on a little bike, and that was all stolen away from her. For what? For what? Please tell me. What Mark did to her just is horrific, and it just completely breaks my heart for her and her family. Like I said, her family lost a huge chunk of their heart that day, and you know, you never heal from that. Obviously, she's never going to come back. She's always going to be, you know, gone, and that chunk is never going to heal. I am glad that they found who he was pretty quickly, and he's in prison for life and should never get out, because who's to say that he wouldn't do that again? Like, he was definitely a sick guy, like a disturbed guy, and I bet you know, that he would be very willing to do something like that again, which is just disgusting. And he won't get the chance, basically, because he is in jail forever. So thank God. And he can't ever hurt any more children ever again. But yeah, that's the end of the case. If you guys have any thoughts or theories on this, please let me know. I like to make this channel very interactive and, you know, hear what you guys think. Please let me just apologise if you heard my dogs during that video, because I just really couldn't get them to be quiet, which they're just being dogs, you know. They bark, they growl, things like that. They're playing. I normally try and keep them quiet for the videos, but it doesn't always work. So my sincerest apologies for that. If you guys have enjoyed this video, give me a big thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you want to for similar content. Anyway guys, that's all I have today on the case of April Jones. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, bye.